Good afternoon, Joey on the Caribbean Weather Dude here. Welcome to the channel. Another great forecast for you coming up. We got two large cyclones out in the Pacific North that will form together this week, merge together to become one solid, angry, aggressive, stupidly powerful storm. Let's go. There it is. This is bad news.
My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen.
Get on!
Wow. I'll watch the video later.
People are dying in the water.
They dry mopping this. Although not officially a sponsor of today's forecast, I'm going to give a shout out anyways to Nahani Construction. They've hired me here and there to do some, just be available for a bridge construction that's going on here in Wells. And they've been treating me very, very good. And that's why I can continue to be who I am here for another week. Also, thanks to all you out there who are supporting this channel, whether it's on Patreon or being a channel member. So here we are in the Bad News Show. This guy down here looks like it'll be a hurricane that's forming, but not going to be bothering anybody necessarily. But it may add some extra moisture into this system as it moves across the American West. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about this, Storm 1 and Storm 2. There it is, and they come together, bam, big time storm and a big time flow. So we're going to see another very impacting series of weather events this weekend, once again in British Columbia. I mean, this has been the pattern for a while now, so I'm sure you're not that surprised. We do have a few flurries going on right now in BC. There is some right now in Barkerville, here in Wells, that's going on. You can tell, see, you have to look at the way this radar image, and Mark was talking about this on the Meteorological Report a few weeks ago, and why snow doesn't give us a good radar return, unlike rain. So often when you're seeing this sort of look on your radar image, of course our radar image ends, here's our outer band of our radar, so we're not getting good coverage in this area because the radar beam is down here in Prince George. It's got to shoot over these mountains, so it's not obviously going to ever have much luck reading what's on the other side of the Rocky Mountains. But we have a really good view of what's going on here nonetheless. And yeah, looks like up through 97 North, maybe a little bit even through Fort St. James and Pinchy, up through McLeod. So a little bit of that is going on. We got a weak low pressure sitting in Alberta still right now. And that's backside of that's what's kind of feeding us some of this. But all in all, high pressure is what's the story in British Columbia right now. You can see the bend in these isobars where that cold front is well ahead of our next series of storms, not impacting southern BC at all right now. A bit of a warm front going through northern Manitoba about to. This over here, this big guy, he's pretty much where all our weather warnings and watches are going on right now. The cold front's moving through Ontario, as you can see, right through Georgian Bay, through Huron, and into Michigan, right, and then up through north top of the Ottawa Valley and right through Quebec to the tip of Newfoundland. You can see there's a bit of a warm front up there that'd be going through the Torngat Mountains there in Labrador. And that's why most of all the weather news right now, 110 kilometer an hour winds expected in the top end of Newfoundland. If you go over to St. John's and Buckens and places like that through the central part where you're getting 70 to 80 kilometer gusts, you're going to see 40 to 70 mils of rain there as well, right? 70 to 100 millimeter rain if you go to the south tip of Newfoundland, with still about the same kind of wind speeds. Similar events in the past led to hazardous driving condition, rolled shoulder erosion and washouts, elevated water levels in creeks and streams, delayed cancellation of ferry services. This low pressure system is trapping into tropical moisture as it intensifies and tracks near or across eastern Newfoundland later this week. There remains some uncertainty regarding its eventual track. This is the Yukon Territory here. Here's Northwest Territories. That's where Tuktoyaktuk is. Snow squall watch there. Conditions will improve Thursday afternoon. And then right along the coast, there's a storm surge warning, so they're expecting some high water levels there in the Arctic Ocean. So if you recognize this storm that's going on in Newfoundland, that's partly the remnants from our storm that went through BC last weekend already. So it became an Alberta Clipper. It raced across. It made its way into northern Ontario at some point. Now it's dragging along, and here's what we're saying on Wednesday morning. There was a risk a couple days ago talking about some thunderstorms. It looks like there's a little bit of lightning going on right now just off the bottom end of Lake Huron. Very impressive tail along all this moisture. Very impressive. And you can see it's making for some garbage weather in Montana and places like that. And this is kind of the remnants of that atmospheric river still hitting into Oregon right now. Here's our next storm starting to form up there. And here's our little hurricane trying to form up as well down there. Hurricane Christy. So we look at how it tracks out. We can see it's going to head more or less out to sea to do no harm. But I think it will help feed some of these storm systems that are starting to form out there, right? So I think that extra moisture and heat that it's going to bring up will help grow this guy. And here's the secondary storm. These are the two that are going to merge, but we still got that high pressure blocking in the middle. That high pressure spilling out into BC, although maybe not as high as we'd like. It's 1042 out there, obviously significantly lower inland. It'll be the merging of these two guys that will become our next story. See, very powerful storm out there in the Atlantic right now, although not too deep. There's a lot for it to work with. We'll be watching to see what it does. Most of the United States sitting in high pressure, except for that northwest corner, and maybe a little bit in the northeast, maybe through places like Ohio today and Pennsylvania. Maybe you're going to see some of the tail of this storm that's going on right now in the northeast, dragging in behind all that. And we don't have a good radar image, but this is the storm up here that they think will be causing a storm surge for the Yukon coast. So that's more or less the skinny on what's happening right now today. As you can see, most of southern BC sitting pretty nice, 9 degrees in Kelowna. That's probably the garden spot right now. If you're in McBride, it's only 1 degrees. Wells, BC. Weather brought to you by Diggy's Diner here in Wells. They're the ones that bought my weather station for me. We're sitting at 1,009 hectopascals for pressure right now. So pretty nice, but still higher humidity. That's what you expect here in Wells to see. And also, we were down to minus 4.7 last night. So getting chillier and chillier each night as we go on. The highest we saw for pressure is 1,013 HPA already this morning. So that's pretty high pressure, pretty high for Wells, especially at this elevation. Nonetheless, we have snow going on here right now. We hit the coldest temperature so far we've seen this since last winter, at least. Highest we saw was 37 mils falling at one time. Of course, I've now taken the weather station offline, and at least it's underneath cover because the snow affects the precipitation. So we're not going to have precipitation readings anymore until the spring on my weather station, if you are wonder map and wondering. So something that's cool that's going on, Curtis and Shannon at Diggy's will be happy to hear this, that your weather station you bought me is going to go a little further. Meteorologist Mark Ingalls right now is setting it up so that I'll be also giving data to Windy. So Windy being the app I like to use the most because it's accessible. I have a lot of maps on here I like to use. Sometimes I use the cave and things that are more difficult. I find Windy's really nice because it's something that you can all have on your phones, and you can cross-reference what I'm saying. You could follow along on your Windy app even as you're watching a video, or you can think a couple days from now, oh, Joey said Friday is going to be the day that storms come. Speaking of meteorologist Mark, he's also talking about this storm. We're often talking about the same things. You might get a slight variation in opinion between the two of us, but we work together. We're working together on the meteorological report. He's now part of Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers, has been for a while on our moderation team. So it's awesome having a real deal meteorologist with us. Pattern is forecast to continue through Thursday. Friday, we start to come under the influence of the next regional storm system. Will bring heavy rain and mountain snow through the province over the weekend. Gusty winds are likely along the coast. Category 1 or 2 atmospheric river event more than the Category 4. And you can even see that when you look at our storm. It doesn't have the same moisture to play with. There you go. So you see, it's going to hit the coast really hard on Friday, but it's not coming with the same ribbon of moisture behind. So it does have a tail behind. Perhaps atmospheric river-like conditions will be achieved. However, I think this will be mostly beneficial unless you're trying to drive somewhere in BC and, maybe you have things you want to be doing outside and you're getting a mix of rain or snow, or depending on your location. We'll get through all that this episode still yet. Snow levels south of Highway 16 will climb to 2,000, 2,300 meter range, 65 to 7,500 feet in the warm sector ahead of the front. So, the front will come. It'll draw up warmth from the south. Could see wind gusts in excess of 50 kilometers. 1,500 kilometers from the storm center, reaching the Oregon coast to Alaska Peninsula. So there's a big one. Snow associated with frontal boundary will begin moving inland north of Bella Coola around sunset. And then Saturdays when the storm really starts to come in. So we're not exactly sure. The ground around the southwest quarter of the province is saturated after last weekend's atmospheric river. So scattered power outages are possible. Higher risk of trees being toppled than usual. So these are the things that last week Mark was talking about, that maybe we didn't have the ground so saturated. We didn't have as much snow in the mountains, blah, blah, blah. So we had a very large event, but it still was limited to how much it could really do for damage. And it was bad enough, as you could see, saw for yourself, right? Rain and snow should be seen through the British Columbia by noon on Saturday, as well as coast ranges north of Sunshine Coast, as well as the interior north of Highway 16. Rainfall totals could be 40 millimeters in the Central Coast. Values lower than this can be expected in the lower elevation of the Caribou. So if you live in an arid part of the province, you're probably not going to see too much of, the worst of this, right? but you could see northwest of Prince George 10 to 15 centimeters, he's saying. So this extended forecast, we can't spend all episode talking about what Mark says, but it is nice to cross-reference and see what he's saying, right? So when we look ahead to Thursday, and this is when our two storms are going to come in. The high pressure now being squeezed inland. It's broken through, right? So we got a little bit of high on this side, a little bit of high and behind. But all in all, we got these two storms now forming one by the time we hit to Friday, the 25th of October. That's my ex-wife's birthday. Happy birthday if you are watching. So sometime overnight Friday, we're thinking 957, quite low. So hurricane strength low once again. Hurricane strength low. Maybe it's cut off. It doesn't have the same moisture to play with as it did last time. I think this hurricane is going to steal some of that as well. So that's why we don't have that same ribbon of moisture quite that we had last weekend to give us a Category 4 type atmospheric river. Nonetheless, this will be a very powerful storm when it hits. If you're along the coast, you are going to get slammed by. You can see the snow in northern BC through on Saturday. Mostly looking like a coastal event for a lot of you in southern BC. Some precip will make it inland, I'm sure, as you can see here, and then we'll have a wider look later. And then it takes a couple days for that to kind of, the trail drags in behind, and now we got that new low forming again on the Alberta side, and Alberta Clipper style, and we'll see what it does. The track of this one seems to be going up towards more or less Hudson Bay rather than going across Canada like the last one did, right? But we'll see how the secondary low forms. So that's a ways out. This is next week, Wednesday already. We're looking at the map. So that's telling you that, our confidence as to what happens a week from now. I mean, it will probably look something like this, most likely. It often does. And we'll see, again, we're in a weekend pattern where the next one's going to come and then the next one's going to come. It's not going to stop. We're in for a big snow year this year, folks. The pattern's here. It's been here since the end of July, mostly. It began to sort of dig in where we started getting that storm track into the Pacific, from the Pacific into British Columbia. That really began. I put a video out yesterday on the channel here that was of us and my crew coming to fight the fire here in Wells, and the crew being here at my house. And when we're at my house on day one, the weather changed and the rain just pounded and poured like it hadn't in 2 years. Go have a look at that video for yourself. But that's pretty much, to me, when the first signs of a larger change in atmospheric dynamics was going on, when we started saying goodbye to the El Nino. And although I don't think we're quite in La Nina yet, I'm not sure on that, so don't quote me. The fading of the El Nino itself alone has been enough to sort of bring that storm track into us. This is concerning. Now we're looking at November the 4th. This looks like we're going to have a strong hurricane, quite likely. Too far out to still call now. This is Monday the 4th, so we're looking quite a ways ahead in the model. But this is something to keep watch out for, that we may have another powerful hurricane coming towards the Florida area. It looks like it may hit Cuba. This is a ways out, but this track would take it to almost the exact same place that Hurricane Helene went to. On Wednesday, we see some of that precipitation moving, sort of sliding downward through BC. All in all, not a big deal. I mean, we are getting that snowfall right here. Yes, friends, it's still snowing out there right now in Wells, BC. But as you come into Thursday, most of you are enjoying that nice high pressure. Friday giving us a nice day ahead of time, and you can even see Mark was talking about the warm flow ahead of the storm. You can see how the storm, it moves counterclockwise. It drags moisture and warmth up from the south, and that's going to drag a bunch of warmth up. So we could probably have a bit of a warmer day on Friday than we've been having. We haven't seen much over zero here in Wells, although the other day, Tuesday, was pretty nice. It got warm for a little while. There we go. By Saturday, the wind fields are, and you can see the tight isobars here, the wind fields are going to be hitting up this coastal stretch, going to be hitting into Haida, hitting northern Vancouver Island at some point up into the straits there. So when the exact arrival of the precip comes, that remains to be seen. Going to get a little bit of snowfall possible into those higher places like in the Coquihalla Pass and Rogers Pass and stuff like that. So, if you have plans to travel on Saturday, again, much like last weekend, you want to be sort of aware of this situation. So slight disagreements in how this plays out between, there's a GFS model here on windy. I was looking at the ECMWF. I mean, this isn't looking crazy, but you can see there's some big time snowfall totals. I think if you're on the Highway 16 corridor, overnight Sunday into Monday, you're going to be seeing some pretty good precipitation there. So I don't know if you want to be traveling into Alberta that way. Be nice and warm in Alberta when that low starts to form. Won't last too long. I mean, warm for this time of year, right? And warm is relative. relative. And so how long will this take to last? It looks like by Monday, Tuesday, sometime you're going to be seeing that precip that was up in Jasper sliding down the Rockies, and that's probably going to bring finally some really big snowfall potential to the mountains around, and maybe even into the valleys and the Cranbrook area into the East Kootenays. Looks like it's going to hang around there for a little while and stall out. So I expect snowfall there. You just catch a short break, everybody, before another band wraps through next week, Wednesday, right? So I think the strength of the storm that's coming this week is going to be there. It's going to be hurricane low-like, right? It's going to be quite strong. It just doesn't have that tap of subtropical moisture to really bring that rainfall totals that we saw last weekend. Friday, 1 a.m., here's our two storms. You can see the counterclockwise motion, the cyclonic motion, is helping this storm feed the one up there. So this guy's going to be the winner. And I mean, that was probably predictable, and it's going to be coming with some anger. So already by Friday morning, it's sitting sort of off the coast there. Maybe your winds will start picking up by then. Yeah, I would imagine that before you're even hitting noon hour on Haida-Gwaii, you're going to start seeing, I don't know if there'll be ferry sailings on Friday or if they're scheduled, but I would suspect that some cancellations and things like that. You're going to be seeing 77K winds to the strait go on the other side, maybe 106. So, these are the top end of maybe some of the wind patterns we could be seeing, but you never know. You never know, right? Up the coast. So Friday evening, that's when you're going to really see the first vestiges of this slamming into the coast. You're going to see winds picking up overnight on Friday into Saturday, even in the interior, even in the Caribou, through the coast mountains, even a little bit north BC. We're looking at some gusty winds coming, and Saturday by 5 a.m., that is looking like it's really going to slam some serious wind down into the Vancouver area as well. Bellingham looking like some pretty solid wind totals. 94 is there. Go into the Olympic Mountains. 112 is possible. These are gusts, not sustained winds that we're looking at. So if we kind of use the end of the day Monday as a bit of a, just a comparison, you could see 100 mils in these areas that have been seeing a lot of storms that have produced 100 mils. So it's nothing that you're not used to already. I think if you're on that mid coast, you've been seeing it a lot. I mean, this is a storm pattern we're in right now. Where you're in the central interior, probably going to be very, very little low and a little amount of rain, that Chilcotin side. You're going to get the rain shadow effect of the mountains. But southern BC seeing some more for sure. And as we were saying earlier, even Monday to Tuesday, you can see some larger snowfall totals falling down in the Kootenays and whatnot. Whereas this modeling doesn't seem to think that Cranbrook's going to see any of that snow. But in the mountains around, you could see a foot of snow falling. So it seems like 29, 27, 28 seeing. So if you're 25, 26, is 35 possible? Yeah, probably. Is 24 possible? Probably. But, this gives us a pretty good ballpark of what we're looking at. Even here in Wells, we're going to be seeing 13 centimeters of snow during that time. So looking pretty good for us comparison. Going to the coast mountains, and here's some big-time reds just outside Surf Inlet. 131 centimeters of snow possible in that time, right? So at this time of year, you even get yourself into some of these stretches where you're driving through Rogers Pass, and you saw how bad it was last week. Vehicles were lined up down the road. Some of these drives in through over the Coquihalla, and now you're going through a mix of rain and slush, and the road may be frozen or not frozen, so you may hit periods where suddenly there's ice that you weren't expecting. It seems like northern BC will be seeing a fair bit of snow over that time, especially if you're on the west side of the Rockies, maybe less so for the Peace, where some dustings and some flurries are likely. But I think if you're more into the Omanika and up to Spatsizi and places, you could see some snowfall. Again, nothing alarming. The closer you go to the coast mountains is where it's going to be the craziest. And even as you're moving through Terrace, I'm sure there's going to be some times driving in through this Highway 16 corridor where it's going to be just nasty. And whether or not a lot of it makes it down to the valley bottoms or not, this seems to think so, but that'll be mixed with rain, and we're going to have temperatures that go up and down above zero. Saturday, we could even see those temperatures bumping up into double digits in a lot of places. Again, that's pulling that warmth up from the south with that counterclockwise, the cyclonic motion of those storms, right? So a little bit warmer, that's nice. That should help more of this fall as rain than snow in some places. But we're going to get back quickly into, cold nights soon enough where, at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, you're going to be seeing, I wouldn't look too much at that as the top of the tall mountains. So if you go high enough up in the atmosphere, you're going to be finding temperatures in the the teens below, but for most of us just sitting near the freezing mark, maybe a little above, maybe a little below. So all bets are on this guy, when it's going to slam. 966, very low pressure. 965, very low, man. The 964 dropping, still sinking Saturday night as it's throwing its first bands of precip into the province. Sinking down deep. Be a very, very powerful storm. It's going to be very powerful wind, very powerful rain. Fortunately, we're not probably going to get the same amount of precipitation we had last weekend. I don't think that's in the cards. Having the ground be saturated as it is already, like Mark said, trees falling down and power outages and stuff like that possible. Yeah. Oh man, Saturday, if you're going through the Alberta Pass, careful of chance of freezing rain up there. So careful if between field and on over some of that. But yeah, as you can see, some pretty good snowfall happening. This is when Fort Nelson seems to take most of it, is on Saturday. A lot of the central interior sitting pretty nice all in all. I think those of us who live in Prince George, Quesnel, Williams Lake, you're going to be seeing probably the least amount of impact from this storm compared to other people. As you can see, Sunday, you're going to see some mixes of precipitation early in the morning. So again, times where you don't want to be driving, if you can help it, over mountain passes, right? Southern BC will be seeing a lot of rain. Mountaintop seeing snow, sure. That's going to be more straight up snow as you go further north, as you would expect. And still Sunday, slamming along the coast mountains. Terrace going to be taking it pretty hard, taking a lot of rain, taking a lot of snow, a lot of wind. So be ready, right? Be ready for possible power outages on top of that. But yeah, next one's lining up next week. So we're into 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one has a longer tail. I'm a little more concerned that we might be seeing a larger atmospheric river event still in our future again. But this is looking a week out, so I'm not going to make particular guesses. I just think that that the setup is there, that we could find ourselves back into tapping into the subtropical moisture. That's more or less what I got to say for everybody today. Keep your stick on the ice, your head up in the corners. Beware of changing road conditions, and enjoy this last number of, except for us here where it's snowing in Wells, but it always snows here in Wells. Enjoy your weather while you have it on your side. Okay, that's the show for today. I talk way too long already. I always do. That's what I do. Hit like, share, subscribe, everybody. Tell a friend, and I really need support near the channel. So always consider me when you want to throw a couple bucks around. Buy me a coffee here on the channel, or become a channel member. Support the channel. But even liking, sharing, subscribing, telling friends, that's the thing you can do for free. Not all of you have anything that you can give. You can at least tell a friend. That's a big way to help us around here. Okay, that's the show for today. Bye now.